Welcome back. It's been a while since we've done a video. Today we're going to discuss defense, or the lack of defense, in virtually every martial art that I'm aware of. And what I mean by defense, an actual functional defense, the ability to defend and even counter. Probably the next video would incorporate counterattacking. But there are four types of defense, or forms of defense. We have blocks and parries, evasive footwork, body evasion, and stop hitting. Blocks and parries. A block is using force to stop force. So if someone throws a hook at you, you put your arm up. You see a lot of fighters will cover their head like so to absorb or disperse the impact. Parries are used. Sometimes you'll see people come across and kind of paw them away. There is a difference between these two types of defense. A parry is a deflection, and a block is a stopping of force. Now, for simplification reasons, we call everything a parry. Technically, an outside parry is a block. An inside parry is a parry. And sometimes a downward parry is a block, depending on what you're defending. If it's a front kick or something, it'll be a block. But if it's a punch to the stomach, generally, it'll be a parry. But it's all semantics. We try to simplify as much as we can. Evasive footwork is basically using your feet to maintain a safe range. We essentially have three forms of footwork that we introduce people to here. And the first one is a shuffle. And a shuffle is a short, controlled movement. It's how we kind of maintain range and maintain our balance. A burst is more of a dramatic type of footwork where we will cover a lot more distance, or whether we're leaving or coming in. And the last one is a blowout. Blowout's just kind of a blanket term for changing our feet and doing whatever it needs to do to do whatever I need to do. Now, ideally, after you get through all this stuff, you won't be doing shuffling or bursts or blowouts or anything like that. It'll be a combination of all of those as needed. And of course, if you've played sports, everybody knows that crossing your feet is bad. We want to avoid those kind of things. But your footwork, as well as your guard and everything else, stance and guard, need to be flexible. You need to do what is necessary. Now, body evasion is the avoiding of physical contact with a person entirely. Now, think about this. There's a lot of different ways to do this. There's two ways you can approach your defense using body evasion. If you've ever watched a fighter that comes out of the corner of the octagon or whatever it is, that is constantly moving. Everyone knows that it's harder to hit a moving target than a stationary one. So, but the problem with this is, if you have ever seen that show Cops, you see the camera guy who's chasing the cop, who's chasing the bad guy. You'll see all forms of things, shoes, sky, trees, other people, until they stop running. And then the camera can focus. Now our eyes, although very advanced cameras, if I'm moving all the time, what you're going to have is the person that's in front of you is going to be moving in your vision. That will affect your ability to perceive what they're doing. You're burning a lot of energy, and if you zig instead of zag, you can run into things like that, into a punch, an uppercut, things like that. This is what we call objective combat. They are being proactive in their defense. We teach a subjective form of body evasion. What this means is what I do defensively is subject to what you do offensively. So we stay calm and kind of control our vision, keep everything nice and compact and loose, and I will only move when the strike comes in. So I'm not burning a lot of energy, and it allows me to kind of see what's going on a little bit better. The last one is stop hitting. This is stopping them by hitting them. Everyone knows the best form of defense is a good offense, but how we apply this here is through training. People, all types of fighters will develop a trained eye. They'll be able to see when a strike is coming. If someone telegraphs, they move their shoulder, they load their hand or something like that, or maybe they look at a target. Who knows? But some type of a tell. And a person that doesn't fall for those kind of things can see the development of a strike and then hit them before the person is able to get their strike off. Now, this is the best form of defense because it almost foregoes the need for a defense. Now, essentially, evasive footwork is going to be your safest form. That is just staying away from a person. The way we would utilize the blocks and parries with evasive footwork is no one's going to dispute that if I'm farther away from you, I have more time to react if you attack me. However, there's going to be a point where if a person gets to a certain range, you may say to yourself, I have enough time to react. I might have enough time to react, and I definitely don't have enough time to react. So use your footwork to maintain enough distance, to maintain enough time. Without getting into a long explanation of what we call the response line, there's a balance there between the offensive use of your footwork and defensive use of your footwork. So there are four forms of defense. That's it. It's going to fall into one of these categories or a combination of those. And the idea here we do expose students to all of these things and train them to do them, and not necessarily separately, but to combine them and create kind of a synergistic approach to defense. And because of that, this creates a fighter that is very, very, very difficult to hit. If they're not putting their hands in the way, they're moving. If they're not doing either one of those two, they're too far away, or they're hitting you. So it makes a very difficult fighter to deal with. Now, what we're talking about today is blocks and parries, and we're going to be demonstrating, showing you some of the drills that we do to improve a person's ability to defend. And single arm defense. Now, clearly I don't want to defend against an attacker with one hand, but we can create an environment to allow people to become much better, more efficient at their defense by creating an environment of disadvantage. So obviously, putting one hand behind your back and only having one hand to defend against there too creates a disadvantage for that student. Also, what we're going to do is, just to make it more difficult, we're going to put their back towards the wall. So they're not allowed to back up, so they can't use evasive footwork. And they're not allowed to use body evasion. And of course, they're not allowed to punch back. So this is like a nightmare. You can only stand there and defend. So it's like there's no end to this. And then also, the attacker is going to stand right on their doorstep, giving them less time to react. Now, the idea behind all this is to create this environment to where you're under stress, but you can still deal with it. We go right hand forward, right side forward, right hand, right side forward, left hand, and then we'll switch our feet, and we'll go the opposites. And then we'll allow the student to bring both hands into play. And what you'll see is an immediate improvement of efficiency in your movement. Because if you're defending with one hand, you don't have time to have wasteful movements in your defense. You can't over-defend. It has to be very compact and very precise. So the videos that we're going to show after this are videos of students doing the single arm defense and then coming back and doing the double arm defense. And it looks much, much different and much more easy for the students. It can be a little bit stressful, but when you press someone like this, when you're allowed to use two hands, it's almost easy.
Let's back up. Sure. Going up like this.
Both moving, eyes on chest, eyes on chest. There you go, start to work now. So what happens when you combine these together, not literally combine them, but when you teach blocks and parries, having in a stationary position, and then allow them to incorporate evasive footwork, it makes you harder to hit. And not just twice as hard. Synergy is kind of things where the sum of the total is greater than the sum of the parts. So when you start incorporating all these together, what happens is you become much, much, much harder to strike. The proper function of blocks and parries, which we're talking about today, is the efficiency of the motion that you're using. So not moving your arms too awful much, or over blocking or under blocking, is only moving as much as you need to. Now, being able to do this functionally gives you the ability to counterattack at the same time, or roughly the same time. Now, when you punch correctly, your hands are generally back when they're supposed to be, and the recovery aspect of the defense is going to be the same. So you'll notice when you see these drills, whether it be one arm or two arm, you'll see that they move very, very little, but they're still not getting hit. You'll also notice that the attackers are standing a lot more close than we would allow them in a real situation. Again, that's just a way for us to raise the stress level. And so when you allow people to move and allow them to incorporate both hands again, it really makes it easy to deal with.
Nice.
Come on, West, hit him! Look at that.
Nice. Hope here, war is elsewhere. You were chosen. This is God's land. Soon we'll be free of blood and mixture.